Hey guys, so Abby and mine's topic is the loudness scale, so let's get to it. I put this speech banana on here just to give you guys a visual representation of the sounds that we can hear in terms of their loudness and the frequencies that correlate with those. So just keep this in mind as I begin to talk about phones and sounds and what those mean. So what makes up the loudness scale? Well, this is the rate at which sound reaches a given cross-sectional area known as sound intensity. It's going to include a wide range of sounds that the human ear can hear, and the loudness scale is made up of two different kinds of units. Those are going to be phones and sones. And a phone is the unit used to indicate how we perceive loudness, while the sone is going to be that third scale associated with the loudness of a sound, and is the measurement of loudness that we perceive as doubling when the phone increases in intervals of 10. So phones and sones can be really confusing, and it's typically not used clinically. However, it's important for us to know this and understand the difference between the physical measurements of sounds and how the human ear can perceive them. So here we have the phone scale, a unit of loudness for the loudness scale. It's also used for pure tones, and its purpose, again, is just to give us a better understanding or serve as the standard measurement of the sound intensities that we perceive. So the general purpose of phones is going to be to show our perception of sounds and that the scientific measurement of sounds are not the same. So on the Y and X axes here, we have the scientific or physical measurements, and then here these are the different phone lines, and this is showing us how we perceive intensity. And I'll get into this better on the next slide. Oh, did I touch that? But 40 phone and 1,000 hertz here is known as like the standard measurement for phones. So the concept of phones is going to suggest that two different sounds at 60 dB may not have the same loudness because we're going to perceive those sounds differently. So again, this concept is saying that two sounds having equal intensity is not the same thing as saying that they have equal loudness. So this is called the equal loudness curve, this diagram, and it's going to show the loudness level of the same loudness level across all frequencies and how it's perceived. So each line serves as the average phone line across the same loudness. Since the human ear hearing sensitivity varies with frequency, it's very helpful for us to have this plot of equal loudness curve, and it shows us how sound intensity is going to be perceived differently at different frequencies. So here as I move along, you'll see that the dB level is going to change at 2. I literally didn't even touch that.
You're going forward.
One more. So I'm going to stand a little bit farther back, but so at 200 hertz, or 250 hertz, it's going to be perceived as 50 dB, and then moving forward at 4,000 hertz, it's perceived as 35 dB, and this is 40 phone. So following the line, I don't want to get too close, but you can see how the perception level changes a little bit, just to show you that the loudness is not equal, the scientific loudness is not equal to the perception of that sound. So following the curve, you'll also notice that when the sound has a frequency higher than 1,000 hertz, the differences of frequencies are going to have less of an impact on the volume of that sound. And then I have some phone examples. So just compared to your everyday sounds, 50 phone is going to be equal to the sound that a refrigerator makes, and 40 phone is equal to like a bathroom fan. Scared to touch this. Okay, so moving on to sones. You'll only understand sones if you get what phones mean, because sones are derived from or calculated from phones. So when we say that one sound is twice as loud as another sound, we're referencing the phone measurement because it's doubling that sound. So I have here in this diagram just some examples that 2 sones, so saying that a sound is twice as loud as another sound is equal to 50 phones. 4 sones, so that would mean that that sound is 4 times as loud is equal to 60 phones, etc. So it's just known as that third scale for loudness, and it's based on the observation that every 10 phone increase, that the sound has then doubled. So that's how we get that doubling of sound all the way through. Yep. So, oh, but I also wanted to point out that, so with this, a sound that's at 80 dB and is perceived at twice as loud as another sound does not mean that the decibels are going to change from 40 to 80 dB when we're saying that that sound is twice as loud. So they're still measured at the same dB, but their sound perception is different. And some examples of sounds are going to be that 4 sounds is equal to a television, 3 sounds is typical office noise, 2 sounds is the sound of a refrigerator. So when I said phones earlier in regards to a refrigerator, that was 50 phones. So that is equal to 2 sounds, as you can see there. Yeah. So I just kind of put this slide in there to bring it all together. The big takeaway here is that the scientific measurements or the physical measurements of sounds are not linear to the perception of sounds. And this will just give you a brief overview of calculations of how we get phones from sounds and so on. So yeah. Abby will take it away here with A weighting and C weighting.
Alright, so there are 2 different frequency weightings. Well, there's actually more than 2, but the 2 main ones are A and C. These are both shown on sound level meters, which Dr. Lee was able to let me borrow one of hers, and as you can see on here, I don't know if you can see, but it shows there's A weighting and C weighting. You just turn it back and forth. Mm-hmm. These both are best for describing frequency towards the real world. Ears are most sensitive between 1,000 and 5,000 hertz. However, other studies have shown ranges as large as 500 to 8,000. It's very important that you do not convert one measurement to another. So if you have it on C, you cannot just convert it to A. If you want to have it on A, then you need to keep it on A. Because you're not able to convert. And then hearing sensitivity is obviously measured in intensity and frequency. Okay. So, A-weighted sound discriminates against low frequencies. The meter measures in the 500 to 10,000 hertz range. It is used for most hearing conservations, so that's like OSHA, the laws, etc. And then noise measurement goes through A. So for C, they do not discriminate against low frequencies. The meter measures between 30 to 10,000. Dr. Lee was able to tell me that for her speech studies that she does them always in C because A is too soft, and then C is more accurate representations on how we perceive the sounds. So can somebody tell me why industries use A weighting instead of C weighting? And this is because if it's on C, it'll be too loud and everyone will get in trouble, the industries would, according to the laws. This doesn't mean that it's safe by any means, but it'll show that the sounds are at a higher intensity than A would show. So like I said, I borrowed this noise level meter from Dr. Lee, and I did some examples that some of you guys are probably familiar with. So the telecom room in the clinic is right across from the office. I measured that just standing outside of it. The A weighting came out to be 56 dB and the C weighting came out to be 63. I also did the high voltage room by the elevator. It's right across in Porter from on floor 1. The A weighting came out to be 64 dB and the C weighting came out to be 72. This is just a graph showing just the different A weighting and C weighting of people measuring different sounds. It's just to show that the big difference between the two. Okay, so A weighting is expressed as dBA. This is how the graph will mainly look for A weighted sounds. Goes like that. It's most commonly used for noise measurement, and it reflects the response of a human ear. It is approximation on how human ears perceive the noise. Okay, C weighting is expressed as dBc. The graph will typically look like this, a straight line across. It's available on all the sound level meters, basically. This one is typically used for loud sounds such as engines, machinery, and entertainment. It is also used for peak sound pressure level, and exposure to this can be very severe and immediately damaging. Does anybody know what peak sound pressure level is? This is the max sound pressure at a specific location. And then these are our references. You guys can visit any of these sites if you have any other questions. And then this is just another graph representation of how A weighting and C weighting looks. There's also a Z weighting, but that's not important to us right now.